Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we give you that structural shortcut to being instantly well-informed. Today we're jumping into the science of building real, lasting change. And not through, some massive life-altering event, but through the deliberate power of these small, consistent steps. We're basically mastering the system behind what the source material calls atomic habits.
And it's such a radical shift in perspective for so many people because, the conventional wisdom, it's always focused on that one big moment.
The New Year's resolution.
Exactly. The big diet, the resolution. And this research, it really forces you to confront the idea that we just consistently overestimate the importance of those singular defining moments.
Right.
And we completely underestimate the accumulated power of these tiny daily improvements.
And it's the math behind it that really hooks you first. I mean, we're not talking about just adding one brick on top of another. This is compound growth.
That is the absolute core insight. If you can manage to get just 1% better each day, the results, they aren't just additive, they multiply.
Okay.
So by the end of a year, you are not 365% better. You are, and this is a real number, 37 times better than where you started.
37 times.
That upward curve, that exponential growth, it is truly astounding.
It sounds almost like, a marketing gimmick, but the math is just, it's undeniable. And the flip side of that is just as powerful, but terrifying.
It is. It really is. Because if you get 1% worse every day, you don't just stay where you are, you decay. You slide almost all the way down to zero.
Wow.
So what seems like this tiny, negligible choice, hitting snooze one more time, scrolling for an extra 5 minutes, slowly but surely, just grinds your performance down to nothing.
So it teaches you that every single tiny decision, whether you're, trying to grow a good habit or dismantle a bad one, it's a real variable in the long run.
It all accumulates.
And this realization, it naturally pulls us away from that traditional, outcome-based thinking. We have to stop focusing only on goals and start looking at systems.
That's the key transition. The purpose of setting a goal is usually to win the game.
Right. Cross the finish line.
To cross the finish line, hit that revenue number, whatever it is. But once you realize that these marginal gains are everything, your focus has to shift. The real purpose of building a system is just to make sure you can keep playing the game.
So you're always improving the process itself.
Continuously. The process is the prize. This leads to what you could call goalless thinking for true long-term progress.
Goalless thinking. I like that.
Yeah, if you're really committed to long-term success, you aren't obsessed with the one single peak. You are committed to this cycle of just endless refinement.
So the real measure of success isn't the finish line you cross.
No. It's the trajectory you're on. Your commitment to that daily process is what determines your long-term success, not some goal you set on January 1st.
Okay, so let's unpack this system. To really get how to build and keep these tiny habits, we have to understand the neurological engine that's driving all of our behavior. And that brings us to the core foundation of this whole framework, the habit loop.
That's exactly where we have to start. A habit, fundamentally, is just a behavior that you've repeated so many times it's become automatic. It's just the brain's efficiency mechanism.
Okay.
Habit formation is just the result of trial and error. Your brain is constantly running these little experiments, seeing what actions lead to a reward, and then automating that successful path.
So it's like Thorndike's cat in the puzzle box,
Yeah.
learning which lever to pull.
Exactly that. The brain is constantly asking, did that work? Yes. Okay, file it away. And this whole filing process, it runs through a 4-step neurological feedback loop, the habit loop.
Cue, craving, response, and reward.
Those are the 4. Let's detail them really quick, and then we can apply them to a concrete example to really make it stick.
Perfect. Let's start with the cue.
The cue is the trigger. It's that first little bit of information that predicts a reward is coming. It kicks off the behavior.
Like the smell of coffee.
Or for our ancestors, maybe the scent of smoke predicting fire and warmth. Today, it's the vibration of your phone that predicts social connection or information.
And these cues, they can be conscious, like seeing a treadmill, or completely unconscious, right?
Absolutely. Like fluctuations in your body chemistry telling you your blood sugar is low. That's a cue.
Okay, so the cue registers, and that immediately leads to stage 2, the craving.
The craving is the motivational engine. It's that desire for a change in your current state. And what's crucial here is that you don't actually crave the habit itself.
You crave the feeling it gives you.
You crave the feeling, exactly. You don't crave checking Instagram. You crave the relief from boredom or the validation that platform offers. Every habit is just an attempt to solve a deeper motive, reduce stress, feel loved, conserve energy.
And when that craving gets strong enough, we act. That's step 3, the response.
The response is the actual habit. It can be a thought, like reframing a bad situation, or it can be a physical action, like going for a run.
And whether you do it or not depends on...
What?
What? Motivation.
Motivation and friction. The effort required. If the effort is more than you're willing or able to give, the behavior just stops right there.
Okay. And then finally, the response delivers the reward, which closes the loop.
Right. And the reward does 2 non-negotiable things. First, it satisfies the craving. It gives you that little moment of relief or contentment.
Okay.
But second, and this is the vital part for learning, the reward teaches the brain. It's the feedback that says, hey, that sequence of actions, that was valuable. Memorize it. Repeat it next time that cue shows up.
So if any one of those 4 steps fails, the habit just doesn't form.
It breaks down. The loop is broken.
That's a little abstract, so let's use a real-world example. Let's trace the habit of, say, checking your phone when you're bored in the grocery store line.
Perfect. Okay, so you're standing in the checkout line. The cue is that moment the line stops moving.
Or just the environment itself.
Yeah, the sound of the scanner, the sudden lack of anything to do, your environment changes. That's the cue.
And the craving is, what? Just relief from boredom?
Relief from boredom, uncertainty. You crave that little hit of stimulation, that connection the digital world promises. It's an immediate craving.
So the response is the action. Reaching in your pocket, pulling out the phone, opening an app.
And that action is incredibly low friction. It's so easy to do.
And the reward.
That moment of satisfaction, that relief. You've successfully distracted yourself, you got a little hit of novelty, and you've just confirmed to your brain that picking up your phone is the best way to deal with being in a line.
Loop closed, habit reinforced.
Every single time.
That makes the whole process so much clearer. It's a mechanism. And now that we know the mechanism, we can introduce the 4 laws of behavior change, which are like the engineering principles to hack it.
Exactly. We just align one law with each step in the loop. This is that structural shortcut you mentioned. To influence the cue, law 1 is make it obvious.
The craving.
Law 2 is make it attractive.
For the response.
Law 3 is make it easy.
And finally, for the reward.
Law 4, make it satisfying. Obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying.
And what's so powerful about this system is that it's completely reversible. If you want to get rid of a bad habit, you just invert the laws.
Right. That's your strategic counterattack. The inverse of Law 1, make it invisible.
Law 2.
Make it unattractive.
Law 3.
Make it difficult.
And Law 4.
Make it unsatisfying.
Okay, let's start our deep dive into the actual application, starting with Law 1. Make it obvious.
Right.
This is all about the cue. And the difficulty, as you said, is that once a habit is baked in, it's on autopilot. We stop even seeing the cues.
That's the central challenge, right? Shifting from this unconscious execution to conscious awareness.
Yeah.
Most of our daily actions are non-conscious.
Like that story of the retail clerk who just, on autopilot, took a customer's credit card and cut it in half because she thought it was a used gift card.
Exactly. Or the former lifeguard who finds himself yelling, "Walk!" in an office hallway. Our environment and our past they run the show. And we call the result fate.
So how do we shine a spotlight on these invisible drivers of our own behavior?
The first strategy is called the habits scorecard. This is where you literally sit down and write out every single thing you do in a day, from waking up to going to sleep.
And then you score them.
You score them. Plus for a good habit, minus for a bad one, or an equal sign for neutral.
I can imagine people pushing back on this saying, I already know, I bite my nails, I don't need a list. What does actually writing it down do?
It creates this vital moment of conscious attention. It's a bit like the Japanese railways point-and-call system. The conductors don't just think they see the signal is green, they physically point at it and call out, "Signal is green." That action forces the task from a non-conscious habit into conscious, verbalized attention.
So the scorecard is your personal point and call.
It forces that confrontation. You move from the assumption, oh, I had a pretty productive day, to the conscious reality of, wow, I spent 45 minutes on social media, 3 minutes reading a book, and 30 minutes eating lunch.
Once we've confronted that reality, strategy 2 is about structuring our environment with implementation intentions, giving our habits a specific time and place.
Ambiguity is the enemy of habits. The moment you just say, I'll read more, your brain doesn't know what to do with that. It's too vague. And implementation intention solves this with a clear formula.
I will behavior at time in location.
That's the one.
And the data on this is just incredible. The exercise study, for instance.
Oh, yeah. In that experiment, the control groups, the ones who were just encouraged to exercise, they had a really low follow-through, something like 35 to 38%.
Okay.
But the group that made a specific plan, I will exercise for 20 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. at the gym, they had a 91% follow-through.
91%.
Time and location. They are the two most powerful cues in our lives. You have to leverage them.
And this structure leads perfectly into the most practical application of Law 1, which is habit stacking.
Right. Habit stacking is a really specific kind of implementation intention. Instead of waiting for some random cue, you just pair your new habit with a habit you already do automatically.
The formula here is key. After current habit, I will new habit.
Yeah, and it integrates so seamlessly. So, for example, you could say, after I pour my cup of coffee each morning, I will meditate for 1 minute.
Pouring coffee is automatic. It's a solid, reliable cue.
It's a strong cue, and now it triggers the new behavior you want. Or, after I close my laptop at 5 p.m., I will immediately tidy one item on my desk. You're just using the natural chain reaction of your day to build momentum.
So that handles creating good habits. Now for the inverse. Make it invisible. The strategy for getting rid of bad habits. If the cue starts the loop, the best way to stop it is to just reduce your exposure to that cue.
And we have to acknowledge that our environment is often a much, much stronger driver of our behavior than our willpower is. And there's no better evidence for this than the famous Vietnam War heroin addiction study.
Walk us through that, because it totally changed how we think about addiction and environment.
Okay, so in Vietnam, a lot of soldiers became addicted to heroin because the environment was just full of these overwhelming cues. It was easy to get, there was extreme stress, and everyone around them was doing it.
So the common wisdom at the time would suggest that when they came home, there'd be massive relapse rates.
Everyone expected 90% or more. They thought it would require years of intensive treatment.
But that's not what happened.
Not at all. It was shockingly different. The study found that only 5% of those soldiers became re-addicted within a year of coming home.
Only 5%.
And only 12% relapsed within 3 years. So basically 9 out of 10 soldiers just eliminated their addiction almost overnight. The difference wasn't some sudden surge of willpower.
It was the environment.
The entire environment changed. They came home to a place where the stress cues were gone, the access was gone, the social cues were gone. The whole habit loop was just starved at the source because the cue had vanished.
You contrast that with a typical user who goes to rehab, gets clean, and then returns to the same neighborhood, same friends, same stressors.
And their environment is just saturated with all these powerful old cues. And the relapse rate there remains astronomically high, around 90%. It's definitive proof. If you want to break a bad habit, stop relying on willpower. Just remove the cue.
Get the phone out of the bedroom.
Put the junk food out of sight. Make the stimulus invisible.
That's a powerful transition. Okay, we've covered the cue. Now let's move to Law 2. Make it attractive. This is about the craving the motivational force. And if we want to crave the good thing, we have to get a handle on anticipation.
This brings us right back to dopamine, which is central to all of this. For a long time, we thought dopamine was the pleasure molecule.
Right.
We now know it's primarily the anticipation molecule. It's the neurological gas that fuels our motivation.
So dopamine isn't released when we feel good. It's released when we expect to feel good.
Precisely. That anticipation creates the craving, and it creates that motivational spike to go and act. The greater the anticipation of the reward, the bigger the dopamine release, and the more attractive the habit becomes.
And the modern world has gotten really, really good at engineering cues to maximize this anticipation, often through what are called supernormal stimuli.
Supernormal stimuli, yeah, they basically exploit our evolutionary wiring. Our brains evolved to crave things that were scarce: salt, sugar, fat.
And now they're everywhere.
They're abundant, but our primal craving mechanisms haven't caught up.
This is where you see food science coming in, using techniques like dynamic contrast to make things hyper-palatable.
Oh, dynamic contrast is both genius and terrifying. Natural foods, like, say, an apple, they offer a pretty consistent sensory experience. Your brain registers it, gets satisfied, and tells you to stop. But foods engineered for dynamic contrast, they combine totally different sensations in one bite. Crunchy with creamy, sweet with salty. Think of a pizza, the crisp crust, the gooey cheese, the savory toppings.
It just keeps the experience novel, so your brain doesn't get bored and signal that you're full. It encourages you to just keep eating.
The food is literally designed to hack the craving stage and make you anticipate that next contracting bite.
That's the supernormal stimulus.
Yeah.
So if that's what we're up against, we need a way to make our good habits just as attractive. And that's where temptation bundling comes in.
Yes. This is where you link an action you need to do with an action you want to do.
So it's based on Premack's principle.
It is. Using a more probable behavior, something you want to do, to reinforce a less probable behavior, something you need to do. You're bundling the motivating thing with the boring but necessary thing.
And the formula for this actually combines pretty well with the habit stacking we just talked about.
It does. The expanded formula is 1. After current habit, I will habit I need. And 2. After habit I need, I will habit I want.
Let's use a real example. Say you need to catch up on some boring industry reading, but you really want to watch the new hot streaming show.
Okay, so you structure it. After I make my morning coffee, that's your current habit, I will read 3 pages of this journal, the habit I need.
Okay.
And after I read those 3 pages, I will watch 1 episode of my show, the habit I want. The reward is now tied directly to the necessary action. You anticipate the show, and that anticipation provides the dopamine to push you through the reading.
Beyond just these self-imposed rewards, attraction is also fundamentally social. We're herd animals. That desire to belong has this huge gravitational pull on our behavior.
Oh, it's massive. We subconsciously imitate the habits of 3 specific groups: the close, the many, and the powerful.
Let's start with the close. Proximity matters.
Immensely. If your close friends or family adopt a behavior, you're so much more likely to adopt it too. The research is very clear on this. The chance of a person becoming obese went up by 57% if they had a close friend who became obese.
57%? Wow.
The power of those shared habits, shared norms, it's just huge.
Yeah.
Your identity is partly defined by the people right around you.
Then you've got the many. This is the desire to fit in, the root of social norms.
Social norms are these invisible rules that govern our daily lives, and we're just driven to conform. If everyone in your office starts recycling, you just start doing it too, without even making a conscious decision about it.
You're just optimizing for fitting in.
Exactly. Behaviors become highly attractive when they guarantee social acceptance.
And finally, the powerful. We imitate people who have status and success because we assume their habits are the key.
We look at successful people and we want to emulate what they do. I mean, think of the Polgar sisters in chess.
Right.
Their father basically engineered this high-status environment where being obsessed with chess was normal, celebrated, and rewarded. They were surrounded by chess books, always competing. Their behavior was attractive because it led to status and belonging within that culture he built.
So if you want to make a habit attractive, you need to find a group where your desired behavior is the normal behavior.
That's a shortcut.
Okay, now to break bad habits, we use the inverse of law to make it unattractive. And this is often about reframing the habit, changing the prediction of the reward.
Reframing is like cognitive judo. Instead of saying, I have to give up smoking, you reframe it based on what you gain. Alan Carr's famous book on quitting smoking, it doesn't focus on willpower.
No.
It forces you to reframe the habit completely. Instead of seeing a cigarette as a stress reliever, you're forced to see it for what it is, a thing that introduces toxins and actually makes your nerves worse in the long run.
So you're not focusing on sacrifice, you're focusing on the freedom and health and money you're gaining.
Exactly. And you can apply this mindset shift to anything. You change, I have to wake up early for this project, to I get to wake up early and build my business and secure my future. That simple shift from obligation to opportunity makes the behavior so much more attractive.
We've covered the cue and the craving. Now we get to the action itself with Law 3. Make it easy. The response. This is where we stop relying on motivation and start relying on efficiency.
Yeah, the brain is fundamentally lazy. I mean, in the most evolutionary sense of the word. Energy is a precious, limited resource. So we are wired to follow the law of least effort.
The path of least resistance.
Always. When you're faced with 2 similar paths, you will always gravitate towards the one that requires the least amount of friction. Motivation is fleeting. The path of least resistance is constant.
So if we want a habit to stick, the most important thing is reducing that friction until the action is almost inevitable. But before that, we have to talk about simple repetition,
Repetition is the mechanism that turns effort into automaticity. I love the story of the University of Florida photography class.
Right.
The professor splits the class in two. The quality group is told they'll be graded on one single perfect final photograph.
And the quantity group.
They were told they'd be graded only on the volume of work they produced. 100 photos gets you an A.
And the quantity group ended up producing the best quality work.
By a long shot. They were forced to get in there, shoot, process, fail, repeat, and they learned the whole process through sheer volume. The quality group spent all their time theorizing about perfection and got paralyzed.
So repetition is change.
Every single rep strengthens those neural pathways. The more you do something, the less energy it takes.
So once we get the need for repetition, strategy 1 is decreasing friction by priming the environment. Designing our lives so the right actions are the easiest ones.
Successful people are masters of this. They make the desired behavior the default. The hospital cafeteria study is the perfect illustration.
They weren't trying to change people's minds, just the layout of the drinks.
That's all they did. Researchers just made sure bottled water was placed next to every food station, every cash register. Soda, meanwhile, got moved to these out-of-the-way refrigerators. They just made water the low-friction default.
And the results were immediate.
Huge. Without a single sign or lecture, soda sales dropped by almost 12%, and bottled water sales went up by almost 26%.
They didn't alter desire, they just altered the environment.
So if you want to eat healthier, keep healthy food visible and ready to go. Lay out your running clothes the night before. Redesign your life so the right action is the convenient action.
That makes starting the habit easier, but what if the scale of the habit itself still feels too big? That's where the 2-minute rule comes in, our concrete example for Law 3.
The 2-minute rule is the most reliable way to beat that psychological fiction of starting. The rule is simple. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
You're scaling it down to a gateway habit.
A gateway habit that leads you down the right path. The goal isn't to achieve the big result at first. It's just to master the art of showing up.
So write a novel is way too big.
It's overwhelming. It becomes write 1 sentence, run 3 miles, becomes tie my running shoes.
The first 2 minutes have to be so easy you can't say no.
So easy. It's non-negotiable. Because once you've tied the shoes, once you're dressed, once you've opened the book, inertia takes over. It's often easier to just keep going than to stop and reverse the whole process.
Okay, now for the inverse of Law 3. Make it difficult. We want to increase friction to stop bad habits. This is where a commitment device comes into play.
A commitment device, or Ulysses Pact, is basically a rational decision you make now to lock in your future weaker self.
You're limiting your future choices when your rational mind is in charge.
Exactly. And the most famous historical example of this is Victor Hugo.
Ah, yes, with The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
He was facing this massive deadline that he just kept procrastinating on. So he gathered up all of his clothes, literally everything he owned, and had his assistant lock them away.
So he was left with just a big shawl.
Just a shawl. This made it physically impossible for him to leave his house without humiliating himself. It drastically increased the friction of distraction and forced him to sit down and write.
That's physical friction. We can also use technology to automate this.
Absolutely. Using an app to block social media sites during work hours is a commitment device. You're making the bad habit mindless browsing so difficult that you give your rational mind time to re-engage. The easiest way to break a bad habit is just to make it impossible to do.
We've covered the whole system from cue through response. Now we're at the final crucial stage, Law 4. Make it satisfying. The reward. Why is it so hard to make long-term habits satisfying?
It comes down to this devastating problem called time inconsistency. Our brains evolved in an immediate return environment. If there was a threat or a reward, you dealt with it now.
But modern life is all about delayed returns. You save money now for a retirement decades away.
Right. And the brain just struggles to value that delayed reward as much as an immediate payoff. The core conflict is this. The costs of a good habit, like the effort of an early morning workout, are paid in the present.
But the costs of a bad habit, lung cancer from smoking, for instance, are paid in the future.
And when that moment of decision comes, the immediate gratification of the bad habit almost always wins. Because your present self is only focused on maximizing comfort right now.
So the solution is to find a way to inject some kind of immediate, tangible gratification into those long-term habits. You have to make the habit feel successful, even in a small way, right at the beginning.
Precisely. If the reward for a behavior is delayed, it's not going to stick. The reward needs to be immediate, and it needs to be tied directly to the action. The success of Safeguard soap in Pakistan is the perfect example of this.
This was a public health initiative to get people to wash their hands more, which is a notoriously difficult habit to build.
Right. So Stephen Luby's team, they partnered with Procter & Gamble to distribute the soap called Safeguard. Now, the reward for hand washing is delayed. You get sick less often weeks later. But the Safeguard soap was engineered to foam really easily and smell fantastic. It provided this powerful, immediate, positive sensory signal.
So the act of washing itself became immediately pleasurable long before any health benefits showed up.
It turned a tedious chore into a slightly pleasurable experience. And that immediate satisfaction is what drove the long-term adoption. 6 years later, over 95% of those households were still doing it.
That's incredible.
The instant reward drove the change.
We could do this for ourselves too. And the most common example here is habit tracking.
Oh, tracking is fantastic. It provides an immediate visual reward that satisfies the brain's need for instant success. It's so motivating to just mark an X on a calendar or cross an item off a list.
It's undeniable proof that you showed up.
Yes, like Trent Dursmid, the stockbroker who used the paperclip strategy.
Right, tell us that one.
He was a genius of immediate feedback. He would start his day with 120 paperclips in one jar. Every time he made a sales call, he would move one clip to an empty jar.
So he could see his progress in real time.
Moving that hive provided an instant, visible, tangible metric of his progress long before any commission check came in. It satisfied that craving for immediate success.
But this also leads to a really critical warning about metrics. Goodhart's law.
Yes. Goodhart's law states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. This is the danger zone of Law 4. You start optimizing for the metric, the number of paper clips, the number of pages written, rather than the actual purpose behind it.
Give us a real-world example of how that goes wrong.
Okay, a classic one is a company that tells its customer service agents, your average call length has to be under 3 minutes.
Right.
The agents, trying to hit that measurable target, they start rushing calls, hanging up on difficult customers, anything to get the number down. They hit the target, but the actual purpose-good customer service is completely destroyed.
So you have to make sure the metric is actually a good proxy for the goal.
Always.
Okay, to break bad habits, we use the inverse of Law 4, make it unsatisfying. We have to make the consequences of the bad habit immediate and painful.
And the fastest way to make a consequence painful is to involve other people. We care so much about our reputation. That's why an accountability partner or a habit contract works so well. It adds a social cost to failing.
The example of the guy trying to lose weight with his wife and trainer is a perfect illustration of this immediate punishment.
Oh, the contract was ingenious. The punishments were immediate, painful, and public. If he missed his exercise goals, he had to wear the hat of his most hated rival sports team every single day for a quarter.
That's brutal.
And if he failed to weigh in, he had to pay his wife $500. The humiliation of that rival's hat, that immediate social cost, was a much more powerful punishment than the delayed health consequence of skipping a workout.
So he traded a fuzzy, delayed negative consequence for a very sharp, immediate one.
The brain responds to immediacy. If you can make the consequence of a bad action immediate, the habit will break so much faster than if you're just relying on some abstract threat of future failure.
We have covered the entire four-pronged system, but this is built for the long haul. Once the habits are built, once they stop being new and exciting, how do we stay motivated? And this brings us to the final big concept, the Goldilocks rule.
The Goldilocks rule defines the zone of maximum motivation. Humans experience peak motivation not when things are easy, and definitely not when they're impossible, but when a task is right on the edge of their current ability.
Not too hard, not too easy, just right. The sweet spot between boredom and anxiety.
If a task is too easy, you get bored, you look for something new. If it's too hard, you get frustrated and you give up. The brain loves to solve problems, but only if they're manageable. That's where you find a flow state.
And this leads us to what is maybe the greatest obstacle to long-term mastery, which isn't failure, it's boredom.
Absolutely. The beginner's gains are so exciting. Everything's new. Dopamine is flowing. You see progress quickly. But once the habit becomes automatic, once the outcome is expected, the task just becomes routine.
And that's when we jump to something new. A new diet, a new workout program.
Amateurs abandon the process when it stops being exciting. Professionals stick to the schedule even when it's annoying or painful or draining.
So mastery is really about falling in love with the boredom of training. It's doing the same precise lift, the same tedious financial review day in and day out, because you value the outcome more than the temporary thrill.
That's the essential difference. But, and this is a critical distinction, just repeating the same easy habit is not enough for mastery. Habits are necessary, but not sufficient.
How so? If you repeat something enough, don't you master it?
Only if you keep challenging yourself. Once a skill becomes truly automatic, you often stop paying attention, you get less sensitive to feedback, you start making small errors that get baked in. You're just reinforcing your current level, not advancing it.
So once the habit is automatic, you have to re-engage the effort. You have to introduce deliberate practice.
Exactly. Mastery is an endless loop. You create a habit, make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying, you automate it, and as soon as it's automated, you immediately find the next challenge that pushes you back to the edge of your ability.
Back into the Goldilocks zone.
You stay in the Goldilocks zone by constantly leveling up the difficulty. That's what prevents boredom and ensures you keep growing.
That is just a phenomenal framework, from the tiniest decision all the way up to lifelong mastery. So what does this all mean for the listener who's looking at their life right now and feeling frustrated with their results?
It means you have to stop obsessing over the momentary outcome and start obsessing over your trajectory. Remarkable results are never built on a single stroke of genius. They're the product of tiny, repetitive actions governed by these 4 laws.
And often, those tiny actions feel completely pointless in the beginning. Hit us with that final provocative thought, the one about the plateau of latent potential.
This is maybe the most important concept for just enduring. You can put in massive effort and see no visible results for weeks or even months. Think of an ice cube.
Okay.
You can raise the temperature from 25 degrees to 27, all the way to 31, and visually, nothing changes. But all that energy is being stored. And then at 32 degrees, you get the breakthrough. The ice melts.
And that moment of sudden success is the result of all those invisible 1% efforts that came before it.
Exactly. Your current outcomes, your finances, your fitness, your creative work, they are a lagging measure of your past habits. If you're struggling, it doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you haven't broken through that plateau yet. The crucial question is not, what are my results right now, but are my current habits putting me on the right trajectory toward that breakthrough? Focus on the system, trust the process, and the outcomes will eventually take care of themselves.
Trajectory over immediate results.
Yeah.
That's a perfect perspective shift to end on. Thank you for guiding us through this incredible deep dive into the science of building enduring change.
Always a pleasure.